Good morning. It's such a pleasure to get to convene us for this seventh meeting already of our Montana ICWA Community of Practice. As I was saying a couple minutes ago, I see some now familiar faces, and it's just wonderful to get to recognize you all and to get to connect in this way. So I hope you're doing well. My name is Ashley Chamey McNeil. I get to be your facilitator today, as I have been for our last handful of meetings together. I'm going to go ahead and try to share my slide. I have a couple screens that I work with here, and I'm both your front end facilitator and your back end tech facilitator. So sometimes there will be little moments that I'm going to need, right, to just make sure that I share things the correct way. So thanks for your anticipated patience with that. Let me do the slideshow first and then share the slideshow. Here we go. All right. So today we are going to be focusing, and we kind of gave a little subtitle to help shape and build out the theme of today's community of practice meeting. And so we're calling our meeting today "Setting the Stage for Compassion," right? And I'll get into where that comes from a little bit, but the reason why this title emerged and it was really from Julie Burke's brilliance being able to give us this subtitle was thinking about compassion as an active effort, right? So we've been thinking through active efforts for a few months together now, and compassion is one of those, right? That always seems like an obvious thing to say yes to. Sure, that might be a good idea, but it gets a little slippery when we start thinking about, well, what does that mean or look like, right, in our day-to-day practice and in our worlds and our communities. So that's something that we wanted to devote our time together today. The other part of this title, Setting the Stage, is because we have the good pleasure of getting to have a couple guest speakers join us for our next COP meeting, which will be in December, okay? And that will be a very kind of focused conversation on a continued deeper dive into what compassion means in work, okay? And so Sherry Fremont and Vivek Sankaran are going to be joining us, and we're very excited to have them help us round out and close out the calendar year, okay? So I want to first kind of make sure that we see who's in the room, right? And who's not in the room. So this is a practice that we've, let me see here, that we have kind of landed on, right, together as we have had several of these COP meetings now. So I'm going to launch this poll. And this is just a very quick, multiple choice kind of question. Hopefully you can see it on your screen right now. If you're driving and it's a meeting that you need to just be here more kind of auditorially, that's cool. Don't worry about the poll. But if you're at your desktop and you have a mouse, go ahead and participate. And we're just wondering what kind of hats you represent as you come into this space, right? So I'll give you a few seconds to engage this poll and give me the heads up if it's not working for you. I see some responses, so I do think it's working. Yeah, so we have ICWA experts, attorneys, judges, Indian families, child welfare, expert witnesses. Yeah. I'll give it 10 more seconds. And while we're waiting to make sure that folks can participate in the poll, I just want to give my heartfelt thanks and a shout out to our group of designers who worked closely together over the last couple months, actually, the last several weeks, in pulling together our intention and our design of our time together today. So Brooke Barricker-Taylor and April Barnings, who unfortunately can't join us today, Katie Sharp, Lana Page, and Bertie Brown, thank you so much for all of your work. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. and share these results. Okay, so I think you should be able to maybe scroll through. Um, but if you can't see it, or if you're joining from your car and you just need me to read it out, I'll go ahead and do that. So we have a couple of ICWA experts here. We have a judge. We have somebody who wears the hat as Montana Child Welfare, somebody from Indian families, a couple children's attorneys, a few state attorneys, and a tribal attorney, and a CASA representative. Okay, so thank you for being here. Zagar, I see your chat. Thank you. Let's see if I can pull it up. ICWA caseworker. Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. Okay, going back over to our slides. So for those of you who maybe this is your first, or you're newer to our community of practice, this is the purpose statement, right? That this community developed for themselves about a year ago is when this work got underway. And I just want to ground us in this purpose, okay? Because it's so beautiful. And that is that we gather to foster meaningful, culturally humble collaboration among folks involved and affected by ICWA. And that's in order to preserve and empower our Indian families and their connection to their culture. Okay. So what does that mean in a community of practice setting, right? This is very much and very intentionally not a working group, but rather a learning community, right? So I won't read through all of the bullet points here. You all can read through them and they'll be familiar to you by now. But the one that I want to kind of uplift and just point out as something that we'll be practicing and putting into play a lot today is that third point about enabling dialogue that supports the exploration of challenging problems and new possibilities, right? So we try to make sure that in our design and in kind of the way that we set up the structures of our convening every other month, that we are reflecting back and kind of activating some of these key points around what shapes our intention as a community, as a learning community, right? And our purpose as this particular community of practice for Montana ICWA folks. So you know that's where we're coming from, right? This is where we've been. Yeah, this is a little flow chart of all of the great work that you have kind of scaffolded together and made possible for several months now, right? And you know, last meeting back in August, right, we focused on best practices and we did some like crowdsourcing of resources, right? Like learning resources, training resources, realizing that this is a very unique community and that there's so much learning that has to happen that is already being made possible and that people are hungry for. And so to that end, we did some crowdsourcing, right? We said, okay, well, who's doing good work? What organizations are out there doing good work? What can we start kind of sharing, right? Sharing the wealth together. Okay. So what we came up with was a pretty good start, okay, to some learning and training resources. And I'm going to go ahead and share this document as a PDF in the chat. So you should be able to see a PDF like download link in your chat right now if you want to capture it for yourself. And we're just sharing it here for now because this is a living document. And so we're going to be expanding on these learning and training resources as more learning and training resources come to light. But also there's some personal information of particular people who are wonderful resources in and of themselves that we want to make sure that we have their permission, right, for sharing their email or their names more widely before we post it anywhere. So for now, you have the PDF, right? But just know that this is something that we'll be tracking and that we'll be updating, okay? And you can always reach out to Julie or myself if you need to snag this document again and if this is useful to you, okay? Any questions so far about where we've come from? Okay. Let me get back to my slide here. So today, setting the stage for compassion, right? We're going to be approaching this in a lot of different ways. And there is no there's no right way or no template of like how to like pull a magic lever and be able to think about compassion differently, invoke it, imbue it more in your working spaces. Rather, this is one of those things that has to kind of be nourished and cultivated and grown, right, for individuals, and then it spans throughout your local community. To that end, then, we're going to be really doing a lot of verbal processing and like chewing on this idea about compassion as an active effort together today, right? That's our goal, that's our scoop, that's the design. So, um, what today will look like is that we've done some ground setting, right? We've done some of our soft landing and introductions. We're first going to chew on the complexities of compassion together, right? I have 3 different questions or 3 different prompts that I'll offer you. I'm going to go ahead and send you out into very small, like duos, maybe trios of in breakout rooms, okay? And you'll have just a handful of minutes together, just in your small groups to be thinking about the invitation, the question that I offer, okay? Then after we do some like ruminating together on like how compassion shows up, how it can get kind of tricky sometimes, we're going to go into a different structure called 15% solutions. And this comes from a set of facilitative tools called liberating structures that some of you may be familiar with at this point. But it's about thinking about what is the 15% that I'm able to do in terms of finding a fix or a solution or an answer, right? Very, very rarely can any single person have 100% control to be able to instill a solution, right? But like a bet or like my hunch is that all of us have the ability and the control to be able to do about 15% of something, right? And so that's something that we'll be chewing on together. And we'll do 2 rounds of this verbal processing and ideation, right? One is going to be by your role, okay? And so we'll send you out into breakout rooms where you will self-select your breakout room depending on your role, and I'll have those rooms labeled as such, okay? And then we'll mix it up, right? And give you time to connect beyond your role, right? That's going to be the kind of lion's share of our meeting today. And then we'll do some sharing and then closing out and some reminders for our December meeting. Any questions about where we're going? All right, well, then let's just go, right? So I'm going to set up our breakout rooms. The first question, the first kind of prompt that I'll ask you and your partner, maybe partners, depending on how these rooms shake out because of our numbers, is in what ways is self-care an act of compassion? In what ways is self-care an act of compassion? Okay. So it looks, let me do a quick count. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and give us 6 breakout rooms, and you'll be assigned automatically. You'll have about 5 minutes, okay? Like 4 or 5 minutes with your partner um, in your breakout room. Okay, so here we go. See you in a minute. Welcome back, everybody. We'll see if I can't nail this recording thing. So we're going to spin you out into hopefully different groups now. Okay, I'm going to recreate these rooms. And the next prompt that I have for you all is so that we can see it better. But the prompt that we have now is to be thinking about how is trust foundational to receiving compassion, right? To receiving compassion. What are kind of the tender ties of trust that are required, right? How do they show up when you're seeking compassion? Okay. So I'm going to spin you back out into these small breakout rooms. I'm going to go ahead and recreate them. If you wind up with the same folks or with the same person, just consider yourself super lucky that you get to hang out with them more. Okay. And call it good. All right. Another 5 minutes. Have fun. So we're going to go back out into groups of 2 or 3 for your final kind of this small connections moment around the complexities of compassion. And the invitation, the thing to chew on that I invite you to consider is how can you guard against compassion leading to burnout, right? I think that maybe kind of instinctually and experientially, we've all been in situations and and know what it's like to just get so tired, right? And to be so overwhelmed and to like not have anything left in the well, right? And so when you think about the ways that compassion and burnout maybe coincide, how can you then be thinking about, well, what are ways to make sure that there's balance and that you can guard against that burnout? Okay. And like, a little like sneak like bridge answer is it comes back around, right, in some ways, like to that self-care moment and to the trust. Okay, so these are all linked together. All right, let's try to get you out and back into your breakout rooms. I'm going to recreate them. 7, recreate. If you're with the same people, you're just really lucky. 5 more minutes. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that we have good acoustics as we re-enter this space together and share my screen, our slide deck of where we're heading. Okay, so I hope that my hunch is that there was some fun and maybe some interesting conversations going on because very few people came back early. So I hope that I'm right in guessing that. But these are questions, right? And these complexities of compassion are things that your design team really kind of came up with together, right? Through experience and through their own understanding of what it takes to be in this work and with communities and how we can think about and move toward, right, a continuous practice of supporting Indian families, right, and their culture and well-being. So I say that because I invite you to like maybe keep chewing on these questions, right? Maybe these are questions that you might want to take to a lunch break or the water cooler later, right? Because they're like very hyper present, I would bet, in like the vast majority of our spaces. Okay. So let me get back to our slides. Here's the scoop. This is going to be the bulk, the kind of lion's share of our time together. And you get to connect in different formations of groups in a couple different rounds, right? Where we're going to be thinking about, okay, so we understand that there's some tricky bits, right? And like some different textures around compassion doing our work in the field of ICWA, right? So what does that mean in our day-to-day, right? It's a fair question. It's a fair provocation, okay? So what we wanted to explore and kind of experiment with you all is a particular structure called 15% solutions. Again, this is from this like broader set of facilitative tools called liberating structures. If you Google it, you can find it. They have a funny kind of old school little clip art logo. You're on the right page. But it's this practice and this facilitative tool to be thinking about, sometimes we can't solve all the world's problems or a big kind of issue by ourselves alone in one go, right? And I would bet that none of us can ever do that, right? Alone and in one go. But conversely, maybe we can do something, right? And so 15% solutions as a structure asks you what you yourself can do, right? Like right now within your realm of power, within your realm of influence and resources already at hand, right? To imbue more compassion into your work, right? Now recall from those series of like small connection conversations that you just did, that compassion, right, is not just something that is given, but it's also received, right? And it takes work, and it also sometimes has like both a promise and a cost. Yeah. So all of that should be wrapped up when you're thinking about this like 15% solution for yourself. So what I'd like to do right now is to kind of sit with this prompt, right? What is your 15% that you can do, right, today within your realm, within the resources that you already have to imbue more compassion into your work? And go ahead and find a scratch sheet of paper or maybe on your phone or on a, on a blank doc, and take the next like 60, 75 seconds to jot down what comes to mind, right? Maybe you jot down the resources that you already have. Maybe you jot down things that you're already trying to do. Um, Nothing is too small, and nothing is too big. If you feel like you can go over 15%, that's rad, okay? But I'll be quiet for the next 60 seconds and go ahead and take that time to gather your thoughts around this question. Okay, take another 5 seconds to finish that thought or the word that you're writing down. And so for this first round, you're going to have more time than like that scant 4 or 5 minutes that you had in our earlier structure. You're going to have, a good like 15 minutes here to get to connect with folks on this question, your 15%. Right, that you yourself can do and enact, right? And I'd invite you to first connect with people who are like kind of closely aligned with your role, okay? So I'm going to open these breakout rooms and it's going to be a little bit different, and that's not going to tell you where you're going, but rather you are going to select which room you best fit based on the role, okay? So let me open them up. And if you click on the breakout room like icon at the bottom of your screen, if you're on a desktop, then you should see that there's 5 different rooms, yeah? And that you should be able to join whatever room you choose. And those 5 rooms are CASA, CPS, attorneys and judges, tribal and miscellaneous. I think some folks are already on it. Yep. Very good. So go ahead and join the room that's like a closest fit. I know it's not perfect or exact, but join your closest fit.
I'm not seeing where the room is, or is that?
I think so, Lana, if you go, do you see the breakout rooms icon at the bottom of your screen? It's like a block of 4 little blocks.
Lana, this is Julie. I can't see it either, so you're not alone.
So depending on if you're on a phone or like what device, it unfortunately may look a little different. But if you go into those breakout rooms, you can self-select. Or for those who are still here, like Julie, Diana, Lana, Joan, I can send you off into whatever room you want. So that's the other quick fix.
One.
Oh, hey, John. I think I can hear you. I hope
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't oh, good. I'm glad I didn't just jinx it. Okay. So for folks who are remaining, how about I just send you off into your choice of room? Does that sound okay? Because I think I'm able to do that.
Yes. Yeah, that works for me.
Okay. John, we'll start with you. Which room do you want to be sent off to? We have CASA, CPS/CFSD, attorneys and judges, tribal or miscellaneous.
Um, what was that last one? Tribal or miscellaneous?
Tribal or miscellaneous. Like
Yeah, that one
admin.
sounds interesting.
Which one? Tribal?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let me pull you in there. Okay, off you go. Okay, Joan, where would you like to go? I can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself real quick? All good.
Okay, tribal. I'll go into
Tribal? Yeah. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Diana? Yeah, no problem. Okay, Diana, where would you like to go?
Uh, Judges.
Judges. Just a second. All right. And then Julie, so let me make sure. Hold on. Why aren't they? Okay, John, I think you have to maybe select join. Yep. So you got it. Okay, cool. So Julie, we don't have anybody. So Susan Blades is the only one in CASA right now. Either I can send you there or I can pop in and suggest that Susan goes into another room so that she's not.
I would put her in CPS and
Okay.
CFSD.
Okay, I'm gonna go in there and let her know.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back. I know that
I know,
folks, sorry, I hear an echo. I'm gonna make sure.
sorry, I
Joan,
hear
I'm
an
gonna
echo.
go ahead and mute you with all due respect. I think that our computers are enjoying a parody moment together. And so, all right, I think our acoustics are good. So I hope that there was like some cool stuff that emerged, right? And this idea around 15% that even the solutions and the grand challenges, or sometimes they're called like wicked problems of the world that are really hard to even like wrap your head around, we can still chew on little bits of it. Yeah. Um, and yeah, and so I'm wondering, so yeah, we're kind of in a moment of wrapping up. And so, Brooke, you have a wonderful invitation here for Judge Robinson. I'm sure that we like cut you off, mid word. So Judge Robinson, if you want to share and kind of speak out and finish up your thought here, that would be a wonderful time, and we'll continue into a little bit of debrief. It's an open invite. And another way to kind of be thinking about this, I know that there is probably some really powerful insights, right? That came from both like intellectual, like headspaces, um, and also heart spaces. Okay. So another way that we can slice this cake in thinking about how we capture those really rich insights is through the following prompt, which is, what was the most radical thing that you just heard or said in the last, hour and 90 minutes together? You can go ahead and reply in chat. you can also switch out that adjective if it doesn't hold water for you, right? So instead of the most radical, maybe the most insightful, right? The most powerful, the thing that will stick with you the most. Nine minutes. Yeah. I like it. As a highly pragmatic person, I really appreciate that.
Oh, now you can say something, Johnny. Johnny, you can talk now. I'll see if I can hear you.
We can hear you, John. We'd love to hear your insights.
Oh, got it going, huh? Gee, I don't recall exactly where I was at. I guess I would just what I am doing now. It because quit the court. I retired a few years back when I hit 75, and but what I am doing, I've been working with some of the council members, encouraging restructuring the law and order code and everything dealing with family issues. I'd like to see taken the first option out of the criminal law and put into an administrative law, and work with all the agencies working together as a team, much like they do at the clinic, where you come in and they check you out and see what your needs are and all that. But everything stays within the community, within the culture, and it uses the people from the community and the neighborhoods. And it's it sounds like a huge change, but actually it's just a step back to where we were. Um, Keeping that goal in mind keeps me from getting caught up with those small moments over an individual case, because those things come and go. I may not like them, but I can't predict where they'll be tomorrow. I know where they're at today, and I can do some of the things that you folks have advised for personal relaxation or stepping aside or whatever. But uh, the reality is we're all a part of this wheel, and that wheel just keeps turning. You know, we're all part of that circle. And maybe it's expanding the best interests of who? Of this child, of course, but what about their parents and their family? So I think that's about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Yeah. So I don't know if you can see if we're showing up on your screen or not, but there was a lot of nodding heads. So thank you. Yeah. So yeah, I see some like really beautiful reflections here, right? Around the importance of humor, right? How humor is actually this like deeply, way it's a connective piece, right? It's a compassionate piece. And also just like what that brings to the fore. Jocelyn, thank you for pulling that in, and Birdie for offering it to the community here. And I'm not surprised, Birdie, that it came from you, because I always like, you have the most beautiful smile, and I'm so glad you show it off in a lot of different places through humor. Yeah, and the community is my law library, right? So like, what a beautiful metaphor and way to kind of pull this practice and thread it through day-to-day practice, right? And listening, right? I think our broader culture, broader Western culture, often is like this drive around like both problem solving and then scarcity, right? When really there's so much that I think we can offer within like our own dispositions into how we approach a different situation, but also that not everything is meant for you to solve in that moment. Yeah. And rather, where does listening come through? in pretty radical ways sometimes. So thank you all for showing up in this way for one another and for the work and kind of this learning community that we have set our intentions on to cultivate and nourish, right? For all of us that are involved with ICWA in the state of Montana. So thank you for convening. We want to make sure that we capture a couple of your wonderful insights through another practice that we've established, which is our closing poll. Let me see if I can't grab it expeditiously. Here we go. Okay. And these are just a couple quick questions. The first one is a quick like kind of scale question, right? And so you should see this kind of pop up on your screen, and the question is on a scale from 1 to 10. Was this worth your time, right? 5 being like, yep, absolutely. This was great use of my time. And 1 being like, we got to rework this, folks, right? And think this through a little bit, okay? And then the second question that you should also see pop up on your screen in that same box is like you to complete a sentence. So it's a short answer question. And the question is, it would be better if, and if you could complete that sentence. I'll give you, a minute or so.
Was the meeting worth your time?
Yes. Is that 1 through?
Okay, another like 10 seconds. Great, I'm going to end the poll. Actually, I'll give you I'll give you a little bit more time. I see the short answer one like furiously populating now. So sorry if I just spiked anxiety in any of you. All right, now I'll end the poll. And I can share some results. It looks like for the vast majority of folks, we were at 5s and 4s, right? In terms of this being worth your time, which is great. And if you were a 4 and maybe you answered this in the second question, it would be even better if. But one way that I like to kind of reflect on this is, what would it take to get you up to a 5, right? I taught in higher ed for several years, and as a rule, I didn't give out A pluses except maybe like once a year, right? And I would always have students who would come up to me and be like, what will it take for me to get up to an A plus? I'm like, that's not a normal thing. So maybe, that's not something that I like distribute, right? As I was teaching in undergrads mostly. And so maybe that's your disposition here too. You're like, yeah, I just don't give out 5. So like a 4 is as good as you're going to get. But if there was a way to crank you up from a 4 to a 5, what might that be? Julie and I would be so curious to hear. And then we have some of your short answers too. So thank you. All right. So folks, it's about quitting time. And I wanted to make sure that we give you another reminder of what's on the docket for our December community of practice meeting. So in the chat, you should see a message from me, and it's another PDF, okay? But this PDF should be labeled Montana ICWA December COP flyer, yeah? And you can download it. We can also resend this to you. Julie can resend it to you. I can resend it to you. So this is not like your only opportunity to see it. But it's a flyer for our next meeting, and we're really excited that Brooke has generously invited, and they've accepted a couple guest speakers for us to join us to help us close out the year in December. And that's going to be Vivek Sankaran and Sherry Fremont. And we're really excited to be thinking even more deeply with a little bit more nuance and texture around their own practices and studies and research, and right, and within their own communities and fields, and what they have found around the implications of compassion in I think a little bit broader in child welfare work. So we're so excited to have them here, and a huge thanks to Brooke for kind of making that bridge and sewing that invitation for us. And so we'll resend this flyer, but we invite you to share it with folks, right? If you know of folks who may be interested in this kind of like guest lecture-ish presentation, right? Like all are welcome in this space, okay? And so please don't hesitate to share this out. If you have questions, shoot us an email. Oh, let me share my screen again. That might help, yeah, as we close out. So if you have questions, there's the flyer that you all can see. If you have questions, you can go ahead and email Julie Burke, right? J Burke, no E, 3 at mt.gov. All right. And yeah, and Sheldon, thanks so much for linking the article. That's definitely been a point of inspiration for a design crew. And it's definitely the thing that like we're trying to bring in and close out the year through, right? This fall is interesting times, y'all, right? Nationally. And so compassion is such a provocative topic for us to be thinking through. So we really hope that we get to see you in December. It'll be the third Thursday, is our standing meeting time from 9 to 10:30 a.m. Mountain. All right. So if you have questions, we'll hang out for a couple minutes. Otherwise, be well, friends. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.